have never been a very big seafood fan. It's just never been my thing. Growing up, my mom never cooked seafood because she and my sister did not like fish of any kind. The only time I ever really had seafood as a child is we'd go to this restaurant called Long John Silver every now and then, and whenever we'd go there, my sister and my mom would get their chicken and chips, and my dad and I would get the fish and chips, and that was the only seafood that I ever really liked. But then I grew up and got married, and my husband loves seafood. Any type of seafood he's tasted, he pretty much likes any kind. And so, of course, me as Miss Wonderful Wife had to learn how to like certain types of fish. And I also had to learn how to cook the fish in a way that I can tolerate it. So the recipe that I'm going to share with you today is for gluten-free keto fish and chips with homemade tartar sauce. This recipe, I gotta say, is pretty good, especially since I don't care for seafood very much. This is actually really good. I mean, the batter that is on these fish and chips reminds me so much of the batter that I used to have on the fish and chips when I was a kid. It is really, really good. And the fries or chips that I'm making with this fish and chips, I got a secret. They're not potatoes. But you wouldn't even know that these are not potatoes. They're so good. They've got an excellent texture, excellent taste. And the tartar sauce, I have never tasted tartar sauce that I like. Never, ever, ever, ever. Until now. And I like it because when you make it at home, you can make it as tarty or as tangy as you want. That's the wonderful thing about cooking at home, is you can just create your own flavors and textures, and I actually like this tartar sauce. So, if you want printable versions of these recipes, you can check out my website at janetsdeliciouslowcarbkitchen.com. You can find printable versions of this and other goodies there for you. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Also, while you're clicking that subscribe button, there's a little bell right next to the subscribe button. Click that bell. That way you can be notified every time I put out a new video. And while you do that, let's get cooking. We're going to start by making the fries or the chips, whatever you want to call them. I always make these first because they take longer to cook. So while they're cooking, then I can start on the fish. But for your chips, preheat your oven to 425 degrees. Line a large baking sheet with foil and lightly spray the foil with cooking spray. Wash and completely peel one small to medium jicama. Make sure you thoroughly wash it and thoroughly peel it because you usually cannot find organic jicama. So really make sure you scrub it good and peel it completely. The smaller the jicama you get, the more sweet taste you get. You want to try to get a small or medium jicama. They've got some really big ones out there. You don't want the really big ones. Those are older jicamas and they don't have as much flavor as the small or medium ones. Once the jicama is washed and completely peeled, cut the jicama into strips that are about 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick. The thicker the strip, the thicker your fries or chips are going to be. I usually do mine around 1/4. I like them thick, but not super thick. Place the jicama in a single layer in a microwave-safe dish. Make sure it is in a single layer. You do not want them stacked on top of each other. They won't cook properly if you do that. So make sure they are in a single layer. Pour just enough water into the dish to cover the jicama. Make sure the jicama is fully covered with the water. Microwave on high, uncovered for about 6 minutes. This is going to slightly soften the jicama. Now, if you've ever dealt with jicama, jicama is a hard vegetable. It doesn't ever get completely soft. The outside of it will get soft, but there will still be a little bit of crisp to it when you bite into it. That is the thing that makes jicama taste so good, is that little bit of a crisp to it. You'll probably, depending on how big your jicama, will have to microwave the jicama in about 2 or 3 batches, because like I said, you only want it in a single layer at a time. So once all the jicama's been softened a little bit, drain the jicama completely. Then place it on your prepared baking sheet in a single layer. Again, you don't want to stack these on top of each other. So if you have to do it in more than one batch, then do it in more than one batch. But do not stack them on top. Do not overcrowd. Just place them in a single layer on your baking sheet. Drizzle about 2 tablespoons of oil of your choice over the jicama. I'm using avocado oil. You can use whatever oil you like. Then toss the jicama to make sure that it's all fully coated with the oil. I usually just put my wooden spoon in there and stir it around and flip the jicama around a bit to make sure it gets fully coated. Sprinkle the jicama with 2 to 3 teaspoons of dry seasoning of your choice. I usually use a half teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, a half teaspoon of garlic powder, a half teaspoon of onion powder, and a half teaspoon of paprika. That's what I usually use, but like I said, you can use any seasonings of your choice. Then toss the jicama to make sure that it's all fully coated. Place the jicama into your preheated oven and bake it for 15 minutes. Once it's baked for 15 minutes, turn the jicama over and bake it for another 15 minutes or until it's golden and soft on the outside. Once it's all baked, let it cool for about 5 minutes on the baking sheet. That way you don't burn your fingers. Now generally what I do while the jicama is cooking for the second 15 minutes, that's usually when I start making my fish, because the fish doesn't take that long to make at all. So during that last 15 minutes of cooking of the jicama fries, that's when you start making your fish. Pour a half cup to 1 cup of oil in a large skillet. I'm using a large electric skillet, so I'm using 1 cup of oil. If you're using a stovetop skillet, then you'll only need a half cup of oil. You basically just need enough so that it fills the bottom of your skillet about a ½ inch up. Preheat your skillet to 375 degrees if you're using an electric skillet like I am. If you're using a stovetop, just preheat it over medium for about 7 to 10 minutes or until it's nice and warm. In a shallow bowl or baking dish, combine 2 large eggs. Use a fork and beat them together until they are thoroughly combined and the egg yolk is fully beaten together. Set that aside. In a separate shallow bowl or baking dish, combine 1 cup of whey protein powder or almond flour if you don't have whey protein powder, and 2 to 3 teaspoons of dry seasonings of your choice. I usually use a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, a half teaspoon of onion powder, a half teaspoon of garlic powder, a half teaspoon of paprika, and a 1/4 teaspoon of dill weed. That's usually what I use, but you can use whatever seasonings you want. Use a fork and stir the whey protein powder or almond flour and the seasonings all together until they're fully combined. Make sure there's no large lumps in the whey protein powder or the almond flour. Set that aside. Cut 1 to 2 pounds of cod, halibut, or salmon into your desired pieces. I'm using cod. I think that makes the best fish and chips, but if you're not a cod fan, you can use another white fish. Place 1 fish portion at a time into the beaten egg mixture. Turn it several times to thoroughly coat all sides of the fish. Allow any excess to drip back into the bowl. Then take the coated fish and roll it into the whey protein or almond flour mixture. Make sure you turn it several times so the entire fish is completely coated. You want a nice thick layer of the whey protein powder or almond flour mixture. Place the fish into your preheated oil and cook about 2 to 4 minutes on each side, or until it's golden and the internal temperature of the fish is about 145 degrees. Repeat this until all of your fish are fully coated and cooking in the hot oil. Once they're done cooking, remove them from the oil and place them on a paper towel so that any excess grease or oil can be drained off. Then place your desired pieces on a serving plate. Serve it with your desired amount of jicama fries or chips, whatever you want to call them. Place some tartar sauce on your plate or in a container next to your plate. And eat and enjoy. In a small bowl, add 1/2 cup of sour cream, 1/2 cup of mayonnaise. If you don't want sour cream, you can use 1 cup of mayonnaise. Using 1 cup of mayonnaise will give it a little bit thicker texture than using 1/2 cup of sour cream and 1/2 cup of mayonnaise. So it depends on what type of texture you want, and the sour cream also gives it a different flavor, so it's up to you if you want the sour cream or just the mayonnaise. Add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, 1 teaspoon of mustard. Dijon mustard works the best, but I've used honey mustard before and it tastes good too, so you can use any type of mustard you want. Add 1 teaspoon of dry cilantro or dry parsley, 1 teaspoon of dry dill weed, 1/8 teaspoon of pepper, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of onion powder. Whisk these all together until they're fully combined and smooth. Pour the sauce into a mason jar or an airtight container. Cover it and put it in the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes before serving it. You want to make sure the flavor really sets in, so make sure that you do let it sit for at least 30 minutes. Once it's done setting, use it as desired. You can use it right away after the 30 minutes, or you could keep it up to 1 week as long as you keep it in a tightly sealed container. And that's our recipe of the day. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you want to see more videos like this, then click the thumbs up like button, click the subscribe button, leave me a comment if you want to. Let me know if there's any recipes that you'd like to learn how to make, and I'll do what I can to get those out there for you. And as always, keep cooking.